The vast chamber of the Galactic Federation Council hummed with tension. Representatives from 1,000 worlds sat in tiered circles, their varied anatomies a testament to the diversity of life across the stars. Most species had evolved on gentle worlds with stable climates and minimal predators. The massive chamber, with its holographic displays and translator fields, represented the pinnacle of civilization, a place where conflicts were resolved through diplomacy, not destruction. Yet today, that carefully maintained peace was threatened. The Federation, for all its technological wonders and combined wisdom, found itself powerless against a new threat. The Korak Empire, a militaristic regime from the Outer Rim, had been expanding aggressively, absorbing smaller systems into their domain through intimidation or outright conquest. Commander Kai Reed stood at the back of the chamber, arms crossed over his chest. His muscular frame, even in diplomatic dress uniform, suggested the physical power characteristic of humans. Earth was classified as a death world, a planet with extreme conditions, deadly predators, and catastrophic natural disasters that had forced its inhabitants to evolve extraordinary resilience and adaptability. Humans were newcomers to the galactic stage, having achieved faster-than-light travel only 70 years earlier. But their reputation had spread quickly. Reed watched the proceedings with practiced neutrality, though inwardly he seethed. The Prometheus, his ship, had been dispatched as Earth's official observer to this emergency session. So far, he'd heard hours of debate with no decisive action. "The Volani system requests immediate intervention," declared Ambassador Talon, a slender figure with iridescent skin that shifted colors with his emotions, currently a troubled purple. "The Korak fleet has surrounded our homeworld. They demand unconditional surrender within 3 rotations, or they will commence planetary bombardment." The Federation High Chancellor, a gaseous entity contained within an environment suit, pulsed with sympathetic blue light. The Council recognizes the grave situation facing Volani. However, our peacekeeping forces are currently deployed in the Centaurus sector. Logistics prevent us from mobilizing within your requested timeframe. Reed could translate the diplomatic speak. "We won't risk confrontation with the Korak over one system." The Federation maintained peace through consensus, not military might. Their peacekeeping force was designed for symbolic presence, not actual warfare. Ambassador Talon's skin flashed red. "Chancellor, with respect, my people face extinction. We have no military capable of resisting Korak warships. If the Federation cannot help, who will?" A murmur rippled through the assembly. Reed felt his communicator vibrate against his wrist. Stepping back from the chamber, he activated the private channel. "Commander Reed," came the voice of Lieutenant Johnson, his communications officer aboard the Prometheus. "We've received an encrypted transmission directly from Volani. Ambassador Talon sent it before he left for the council meeting. Priority 1. "Route it to my personal device," Reed ordered, ducking into an alcove away from curious eyes. The message appeared as text, bypassing official channels. "To Earth Command, we have studied your species. You alone understand what it means to fight against impossible odds. The Korak will not stop with Volani. We beg for your intervention, not as Federation members, but as one sentient species to another. Our coordinates follow." Below was a data package containing the Volani system's location, planetary defense capabilities, minimal, and Korak fleet disposition, overwhelming. Reed's jaw tightened. Earth's treaty with the Federation explicitly prohibited unilateral military action in Federation space. Intervention would violate those terms and potentially damage humanity's standing among the stars. But the message had activated something primal in him, the human instinct to protect the vulnerable. A trait evolved on their dangerous homeworld, where cooperation had been key to survival. He made his decision. "Lieutenant Johnson, alert the crew. We depart in 30 minutes. Set course for the Volani system." "Sir?" Johnson's voice conveyed surprise. Without Federation authorization? The authorization can catch up with us, Reed said grimly. Inform Earth Command of our intentions after we're underway. Understood, Commander. There was no hesitation in the lieutenant's voice now. Reed pocketed his communicator and slipped out of the council chamber. Ambassador Talon was still pleading his case, his words falling on unsympathetic ears. Reed didn't need to hear more. Humanity had once been alone in a hostile universe. They understood what it meant to face extinction. The Prometheus would answer Volani's call. The starship Prometheus emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Volani system, immediately engaging its stealth systems. The massive vessel, nearly 2 kilometers long, represented the pinnacle of human military engineering, though it had never been tested in actual combat against an advanced alien power. On the bridge, Commander Reed stood before the tactical display, studying the situation. The Korak blockade was even more formidable than Volani intelligence had indicated. 300 warships arranged in concentric defensive formations around the blue-green planet. Stealth systems holding, reported Lieutenant Johnson from the communication station. They haven't detected our arrival. Intelligence Officer Stone, a woman with short-cropped hair and calculating eyes, manipulated the holographic display. I count 75 capital ships, 120 cruisers, and the rest support vessels. Commander, those aren't occupation forces. That's an extermination fleet. Reed nodded grimly. The Korak don't want Volani resources or territory. They want to make an example. He turned to his executive officer. Launch reconnaissance drones. I want detailed scans of their fleet composition, weapons capabilities, and command structure. Within minutes, the stealthy drones were deployed, transmitting data back to the Prometheus. The bridge crew watched in tense silence as the tactical picture became clearer. Sir, Stone said finally, I've identified their command vessel, the Dreadnought at coordinates 227 Mark 43. Admiral Kresh commands their fleet from that position. Reed studied the massive ship at the center of the Korak formation. What do we know about Kresh? Brutal efficiency, Stone replied. He's destroyed 3 civilizations that resisted Korak expansion. No survivors. The commander's expression hardened. Then, we'll need to introduce him to humanity's approach to warfare. He turned to address his crew. The Federation won't arrive in time, if they come at all. We are Volani's only hope. I won't order you to violate Federation directives. This mission is voluntary. The bridge fell silent. Then Lieutenant Johnson spoke. Sir, Earth sent us out here to represent humanity's interests. I'd say preventing genocide qualifies. Murmurs of agreement spread across the bridge. Reed nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. Very well. Tactical. Prepare a battle plan. We'll strike in 12 hours. I want every advantage we can create. As the crew turned to their duties with renewed purpose, Reed retreated to his ready room. There, he recorded a message to Earth Command, explaining his decision to intervene. He knew the potential consequences: court-martial, diplomatic isolation, even restrictions on future human expansion. But watching a civilization be exterminated, while they had the power to prevent it, that was a price too high to pay for political convenience. The message complete, Reed returned to the bridge where Intelligence Officer Stone had prepared her assessment. The Korak rely on overwhelming force rather than tactical superiority, she explained, highlighting various fleet formations. Their ships are heavily armored but relatively slow to maneuver. Most importantly, they've never faced human tactics. And they've never fought Deathworlders, Reed added. Prepare the dropships and alert the Marines. We're going to give Admiral Kresh a demonstration of Earth warfare. The first phase of Reed's plan began 18 hours later. A small scout ship, little more than an engine with minimal life support, streaked out of the Prometheus's launch bay, directly toward the outer picket line of Korak vessels. Inside the cramped cockpit, Lieutenant Johnson manipulated controls with practiced precision. Approaching targeting range for the first escort. They've spotted us. Weapons coming online. Reed's voice came through the comm. Remember, Lieutenant, hit and fade. Don't let them track you back to our position. Understood, Commander. Initiating attack run. The scout ship accelerated to attack velocity, its small profile making it difficult for the larger Korak vessel to target. As it closed distance, Johnson activated the ship's single weapon, a concentrated particle beam designed to penetrate shields and disable rather than destroy. The beam struck the Korak escort at a precisely calculated point where sensor data had revealed a weakness in its shield configuration. Systems overloaded, and the escort vessel's engines died, leaving it drifting in space. Before the nearby Korak ships could respond, Johnson had already executed a complex evasive pattern, vanishing from their sensors. He repeated this process 5 more times over the next 3 hours, disabling Korak escorts in different sectors of their formation before returning to the Prometheus. On the bridge, Reed reviewed the results. Good work, Lieutenant. Phase 1 complete. We've created gaps in their sensor network and sowed confusion. Stone nodded appreciatively. They're adjusting patrol patterns, trying to compensate for the blind spots. Just as we predicted. Then it's time for Phase 2, Reed declared. Prepare the strike teams. Within the hour, 4 specialized assault craft departed the Prometheus, each carrying a team of Earth's Marine Special Forces. Unlike the mechanical precision of Korak formations, these teams operated with the adaptability and cunning that had made humans apex predators on their homeworld. Major Cross led the primary team, guiding their stealth craft through the gaps in the Korak sensor net, created by Johnson's earlier strikes. Their target, a Korak communications relay positioned on Volani's largest moon. Approaching the landing zone, Cross reported as their craft skimmed silently over the lunar surface. No detection so far. His team of 12 Marines prepared their equipment, a combination of advanced energy weapons and surprisingly primitive but effective kinetic armaments. Humans had learned that technological disruption could render energy weapons useless, while a well-placed bullet remained deadly regardless of electronic countermeasures. The craft settled into a crater 2 kilometers from the Korak facility. Within minutes, the Marines had deployed, moving across the lunar surface with practiced efficiency. Cross observed the facility through enhanced optics. 6 external guards, automated defense turrets at cardinal points, internal garrison unknown. Sergeant Miller, his second in command, checked her weapon. Rules of engagement, sir. Disable when possible. Lethal force when necessary, Cross replied. Remember, we need their communications equipment intact. The assault was precisely executed. 2 Marines deployed electromagnetic pulse devices that temporarily disabled the automated defenses. The remaining team members approached from multiple directions, using the moon's low gravity to make extraordinary leaps that confounded the Korak Guard's targeting systems. Within 7 minutes, the external defenses had been neutralized. The team breached the facility, encountering 18 Korak soldiers inside. The battle was brief, but intense. The Korak, accustomed to overwhelming their enemies with superior firepower, were unprepared for the speed and tactical flexibility of human combatants. Cross lost 2 Marines in the engagement, but within 20 minutes, his team had secured the facility and its vital communications array. Prometheus, this is Cross. Relay secured, beginning Phase 3. Back on the flagship, Reed acknowledged the report. Excellent work, Major. Our technicians are connecting to their systems now. Intelligence Officer Stone led the cyber warfare team that began infiltrating the Korak battle network. We're in, she reported, after several tense minutes. Accessing their tactical communications, we can now monitor their fleet movements and, more importantly, feed them false information. Reed smiled grimly. Perfect. Have our other teams reached their targets? Team 2 has captured a supply vessel. Teams 3 and 4 are in position to seize the destroyer on the far side of the moon. The commander nodded. Execute Phase 4. Over the next 6 hours, human forces conducted a series of lightning raids throughout the Karak fleet's outer defensive ring. Each operation followed the same pattern: swift, surgical strikes that neutralized key targets before the Karak could mount an effective response. The humans' approach to warfare bewildered the Karak commanders. Instead of engaging in direct confrontation, the Earth forces struck at vulnerable points, disappeared, then reappeared elsewhere. They captured Karak vessels and turned them against their former masters, creating confusion and forcing the Karak to fire on their own ships. Admiral Kresh, from his command center on the flagship Dreadnought, grew increasingly furious as reports of these raids reached him. "Who are these attackers?" he demanded of his subordinates. "How can one ship cause such disruption?" His intelligence officer, visibly nervous, replied, "We believe it's an Earth vessel, Admiral, humans." Kresh's multiple eyes narrowed. "Deathworlders," he hissed. "The Federation warned us about them, but no matter. They are one ship against our armada. Prepare all vessels for a full alert status. When they reveal themselves, we will crush them utterly." But the humans had no intention of revealing themselves. Not yet. On the Prometheus, Reed gathered his officers for a tactical review. The holographic display showed the current disposition of Karak forces, with highlighted sections indicating the areas they had disrupted. "We've created significant disarray in their outer defensive rings," Reed observed. "Now, we need to establish contact with the Volani resistance." Stone nodded. "Using the captured communications relay, we've made contact with Ambassador Talon's resistance cell on the surface. They're ready to coordinate with our forces." "Good. Prepare a dropship. I'm going down to meet them personally." His executive officer looked concerned. "Commander, that's extremely risky. The Karak control the orbitals." "Which is why they won't expect it," Reed replied. "Besides, I need to assess the situation firsthand if we're going to coordinate an effective ground campaign." 12 hours later, Reed's dropship, using captured Karak identification codes, slipped through the blockade and entered Volani's atmosphere. The craft landed in a remote mountain region where Ambassador Talon had established one of several resistance bases. The ambassador himself met Reed at the landing zone, his skin shifting to hopeful green tones upon seeing the human commander. "Commander Reed," Talon said, clasping the human's hand in the Earth greeting he had learned. "When I sent that message, I hardly dared hope. Yet here you are." Reed surveyed the makeshift base, a collection of prefabricated structures nestled within a natural cave system. Volani civilians moved purposefully about, preparing supplies and tending to the wounded. "The Federation wouldn't act," Reed said simply. "We could not stand by and watch your people be exterminated." Talon led Reed to a command center, equipped with salvage technology. "The Karak landed ground forces 3 days ago," he explained. "They've established control of our major cities and orbital defense platforms. They're preparing for the final phase, systematic elimination of all Volani." "How many resistance cells remain active?" 17 major groups, scattered across the continent. Perhaps 20,000 fighters, mostly civilians with minimal training. Reed studied the tactical map. "And the Karak ground forces?" "Approximately 100,000 troops, heavily armed and supported by mechanized units." The human commander nodded thoughtfully. "Conventional wisdom would say those are impossible odds." A smile touched his lips. "Fortunately, humans don't put much stock in conventional wisdom. We specialize in impossible odds." Over the next hours, Reed outlined his strategy to Talon and the resistance leaders. The human Marines would provide training, tactical leadership, and special operations capabilities, while the Volani resistance would supply the numbers and local knowledge necessary for a coordinated planetary uprising. "The key," Reed explained, "is synchronization. When the Prometheus engages their fleet, all resistance cells must strike simultaneously. We'll only get one chance at this." As preparations continued, Reed received an encrypted communication from the Prometheus. Lieutenant Johnson's face appeared on the secure terminal. Commander, we've detected multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Readings suggest Earth vessels. Reed's eyebrows rose in surprise. Earth sent reinforcements? Without Federation approval? Appears so, sir. Colonel Brooks is commanding the task force. 20 ships, including the Thermopylae and the Marathon. Hope surged through Reed. Earth had decided to back his play. Federation politics be damned. Patch me through to Colonel Brooks. The screen shifted to show a stern-faced woman in an Earth Fleet uniform. Commander Reed, she said by way of greeting. It seems you've started quite the diplomatic incident. Colonel, Reed acknowledged, I take full responsibility for... Brooks cut him off with a raised hand. Save it, Commander. Earth Command reviewed your situation report. While you technically violated protocols, they've authorized full intervention. The Korak Empire's actions represent an existential threat that cannot be tolerated. Reed couldn't hide his relief. Your arrival changes our tactical possibilities considerably. Indeed. The Prometheus has been conducting an impressive guerrilla campaign. But with our combined forces, we can implement a more direct approach. Brooks's expression turned serious. I should warn you. The Federation Council is in an uproar. Several members are demanding sanctions against Earth for unilateral military action. And Earth's response? To quote Admiral Chen's message to the Council, humanity will not stand idle while genocide occurs, regardless of political consequences. Brooks allowed herself a slight smile. Now, Commander, let's coordinate our assault. We'll need to move quickly before the Korak can adjust to our presence. The arrival of Earth reinforcements dramatically altered the strategic situation. While the Prometheus continued its guerrilla tactics, disrupting Korak communications and creating false sensor readings. Brooks's task force took position at the edge of the system, preparing for a decisive engagement. On Volani's surface, Reed finalized preparations with the Resistance. Each cell was assigned specific targets, communication centers, spaceports, garrison headquarters, to be struck simultaneously when the orbital battle began. Remember, Reed told the assembled Volani fighters, your advantage is knowledge of the terrain. Don't engage the Korak in direct confrontation unless necessary. Strike, move, disappear, then strike again elsewhere. Ambassador Talon, now serving as the Resistance's political leader, addressed his people. For generations, we Volani have been a peaceful species. Violence is not in our nature. But today, we fight not just for our survival, but for our freedom to remain peaceful in the future. As the final hours before the assault ticked away, Reed received word from Brooks that all Earth ships were in position. The commander made his way to a hilltop overlooking the Volani capital city, now occupied by Korak forces. In the night sky above, faint points of light marked the positions of the Korak blockade. Sergeant Miller joined him, her battle armor already secured. Hell of a view, sir. Reed nodded. Soon to be a hell of a battlefield. The men are ready, Miller reported. Everyone knows this is for all the marbles. All the marbles, Reed repeated with a faint smile. Human idioms often confused other species, but they carried centuries of cultural weight among Earth forces. Indeed it is, Sergeant. By this time tomorrow, either the Volani will be free, or the Korak will have demonstrated that might makes right in this galaxy. Miller checked her weapon with practiced ease. With respect, sir, Earth has something to say about that. At precisely 0300 local time, the coordinated assault began, in orbit. Colonel Brooks's task force executed a daring maneuver that had never been attempted in galactic warfare. Rather than engaging the Korak fleet conventionally, the Earth vessels performed precisely calculated hyperspace jumps that placed them directly in the midst of the enemy formation. This intra-battle hyperspace insertion was considered theoretically possible, but suicidally dangerous by most spacefaring civilizations. The calculations required were so complex, the timing so precise, that a microscopic error would result in ships materializing inside solid matter, with catastrophic results. Humans, however, had evolved on a planet where calculated risk-taking had been essential for survival. What seemed recklessly dangerous to other species was, to humans, a necessary tactical innovation. 20 Earth warships appeared simultaneously throughout the Karak formation, their weapons already firing as they emerged from hyperspace. The Karak, their fleet arranged to defend against external attack, suddenly found enemies within their defensive perimeter, striking at their most vulnerable points. Admiral Kresh, watching his tactical display in growing horror, barked orders to his subordinates. "Regroup, all ships, close formation and concentrate fire on the Earth vessels." But the human ships refused to remain stationary targets. They executed another series of short-range hyperspace jumps, appearing in new positions before the Karak could effectively target them. Each jump placed them near critical Karak vessels, allowing them to inflict maximum damage before disappearing again. Meanwhile, the Prometheus, which had remained hidden throughout the preliminary operations, now revealed itself. Commander Johnson, temporarily in command, while Reed led ground forces, directed the flagship in a bold charge directly toward Admiral Kresh's dreadnought. "All weapons online," Johnson ordered. "Target their command vessel's propulsion systems." The Prometheus, designed to combine firepower with maneuverability, accelerated to attack velocity. Its main batteries opened fire, the concentrated energy beams carving through the outer defenses of Kresh's flagship. On Volani's surface, Reed coordinated the ground assault. As planned, resistance cells struck simultaneously across the planet, targeting Karak facilities and command centers. The human Marines, integrated with Volani fighters, led the most critical operations. Reed himself, along with Sergeant Miller and a mixed human Volani strike team, assaulted the main Karak headquarters in the capital city. Their objective? Capture or eliminate the ground forces commander and disrupt the Karak command structure. The team infiltrated the city using underground transit tunnels, emerging just 2 blocks from the headquarters, a repurposed government building now surrounded by Karak defensive positions. Sniper team in position," came Major Cross's voice over the comm. "We have overwatch on the main entrance and rooftop landing pad." Reed surveyed the building through enhanced optics. "Security looks heavier than intelligence suggested. They've added automated turrets on the north perimeter." Miller checked her tactical display. "Team 2 reports Karak forces moving toward the spaceport. They're trying to evacuate their command staff." "Not happening," Reed declared. "Cross, can your team disable those turrets?" "Affirmative. On your mark, Commander." Reed signaled the assembled fighters, 30 Volani resistance members and 15 Earth Marines. "Remember your training, move fast, stay low, and maintain fire discipline. We go in 3, 2, 1. Cross's snipers eliminated the automated defenses with precision shots to their control systems. Simultaneously, Reed led the assault team forward, using portable shield generators to provide cover against the inevitable Karak response. The battle was fierce. Karak soldiers, while not individually as adaptable as humans, fought with fanatical discipline. They poured suppressive fire into the advancing Earth Volani force, creating a nearly impenetrable wall of energy bolts. Reed signaled to Miller, "Deploy sonic disruptors." The sergeant activated the specialized weapons, devices that generated sound waves at frequencies particularly disorienting to Karak physiology. As the defenders faltered, the assault team surged forward, breaching the outer perimeter. Inside the building, the fighting became close quarters and desperate. The humans, with their Deathworld reflexes and strength, led the way, clearing rooms and corridors with methodical efficiency. The Volani resistance fighters followed, securing each area and treating wounded. Reed, Miller, and a squad of Marines fought their way to the command center on the building's top floor. The final defense was a squad of Korak elite guards armed with energy blades designed to penetrate standard armor. "Commander," Miller warned, "our intel says these guys are augmented with combat stimulants. They won't go down easy." Reed nodded grimly. "Nothing worthwhile ever does. Sergeant." He switched to a specialized weapon, a projectile launcher that fired smart microgrenades. "Cover me." The Marines laid down suppressive fire, while Reed maneuvered for a clear shot at the ceiling above the Korak guards. The microgrenades detonated precisely, bringing down sections of the ceiling onto the defenders and creating momentary confusion. In that instant, the humans charged. The battle was brutal and swift. 3 Marines fell to the Korak blades, but the remainder overwhelmed the guards through sheer ferocity and tactical coordination that the Korak, for all their discipline, couldn't match. Reed personally engaged the lead guard, a massive Korak nearly twice his size. The alien's energy blades slashed through the air with lethal precision, but Reed moved with the heightened reflexes characteristic of humans, a product of evolving on a world where split-second decisions meant the difference between life and death. Dodging a downward slash, Reed drove his combat knife into a gap in the Korak's armor, a vulnerability identified in Stone's intelligence briefings. The guard collapsed, and Reed moved past him to the command center doors. The doors slid open to reveal the Korak ground commander, General Vex, surrounded by his staff officers. They had been in the process of destroying sensitive data when the assault team arrived. "Surrender," Reed ordered, his weapon trained on the general. Vex stared at the human with a mixture of hatred and bewilderment. "How?" he demanded. "How could one primitive species overcome our forces?" Reed didn't bother explaining that humans were anything but primitive. "Your choice, General. Surrender now, and your personnel will be treated according to galactic conventions. Resist, and this ends only one way." For a moment, it seemed Vex would choose death. Then, perhaps seeing something in Reed's eyes that conveyed the absolute certainty of that outcome, he slowly lowered his weapon. "The Korak Empire does not surrender," he said bitterly. "But I will order a temporary cessation of hostilities to prevent unnecessary casualties." Reed nodded to Miller, who moved forward to secure the general's weapons. "A wise decision. Now order your orbital forces to stand down as well." Vex gave a harsh laugh. "I have no authority over Admiral Kresh. He answers only to the Emperor." "Then he'll have to make his own decision," Reed replied, activating his communicator. "Colonel Brooks, status update?" Brooks's voice came through, accompanied by the background sounds of a command center in the midst of battle. "The tide has turned, Commander. We've destroyed or disabled 60% of their capital ships. The remainder are beginning to retreat. Admiral Kresh's dreadnought is crippled but still fighting. And our losses?" A brief pause. 7 ships destroyed, 5 heavily damaged. The Prometheus performed brilliantly. Lieutenant Johnson deserves a commendation. Reed felt a surge of pride mixed with sorrow for the lost crews. "Keep the pressure on. Don't let them regroup." He turned back to General Vex. "It seems your admiral is facing the same choice you did." In orbit, the battle had reached its climactic phase. The Earth fleet, despite taking significant losses, had shattered the Korak formation. Their hyperspace tactics had allowed them to target and destroy key vessels before the Korak could mount an effective defense. Admiral Kresh's dreadnought, its propulsion systems crippled by the Prometheus's initial attack, now drifted in space, surrounded by Earth warships. The once mighty vessel still possessed operational weapons, however, and continued to fight with the desperate fury of a cornered predator. Colonel Brooks, from her command ship, opened a communication channel. "Admiral Kresh, your fleet is defeated. Your ground forces have surrendered. Continuing this battle will only result in the needless deaths of your remaining crews." Kresh's reply was transmitted across all frequencies. His voice filled with contempt. Death is preferable to defeat. Human. The Korak Empire does not yield. Then you leave us no choice. Brooks responded grimly. She turned to her tactical officer. Target their reactor control systems. Precision strikes only. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed. The Earth vessels coordinated their attack, concentrating fire on the Dreadnought's power regulation systems. Without propulsion, Kresh's ship couldn't evade the barrage. Its shields, already weakened from previous combat, finally failed under the sustained assault. As the Dreadnought's lights flickered and its weapons fell silent, Brooks opened the channel again. Admiral, your ship is dead in space. You have 10 minutes to evacuate your crew before we are forced to destroy the vessel entirely. For nearly 9 of those minutes, there was no response. Then, finally, Kresh's voice returned, subdued but still defiant. We will evacuate, but know this, human. The Emperor will not forget this humiliation. The Korak Empire spans dozens of systems. This defeat is merely a temporary setback. Perhaps, Brooks replied, but it should serve as a lesson. There are lines that should not be crossed. Even in warfare, genocide is one of them. As escape pods began launching from the crippled Dreadnought, Brooks contacted Reed on the surface. Commander, we've achieved orbital superiority. Admiral Kresh has abandoned his flagship. What's your status? Reed, standing on a balcony overlooking the Volani capital, surveyed the city where fighting was gradually subsiding. We've secured the Planetary Government Center and captured their ground commander. Resistance cells report similar successes worldwide. I'd say Volani is officially liberated, Colonel. Excellent work. Be advised. We're detecting multiple hyperspace signatures approaching the system. Federation peacekeepers, finally answering Ambassador Talon's call. There was a note of irony in Brooks's voice. Better late than never, I suppose. Reed smiled grimly. Indeed. Have they issued any official response to our intervention? Only a formal protest so far. But with the situation resolved and evidence of Korak atrocities well documented, I suspect they'll eventually come around to thanking us, quietly. Of course. Of course, Reed agreed. Politics never changed, regardless of species. We'll prepare for their arrival. Reed out. In the days that followed, the full extent of the Earth Force's victory became apparent. Not only had they liberated Volani, but news of the Korak defeat spread rapidly throughout the sector. Systems that had been intimidated into submission began to rebel against their oppressors. Without Admiral Kresh's fleet to maintain control, the Korak Empire found itself facing internal collapse. On Volani, Commander Reed worked closely with Ambassador Talon to establish a transitional government. The Volani, though traumatized by the Korak occupation, proved remarkably resilient. Their society, based on principles of cooperation and consensus, quickly adapted to post-liberation challenges. A week after the battle, Reed met with Talon in the newly reclaimed governmental palace. Federation representatives had arrived and were busily documenting Korak war crimes, while simultaneously expressing concern about Earth's unilateral military action. Your people seem to be recovering well, Reed observed as they walked through gardens that had suffered during the fighting, but were already being restored. Talon's skin rippled with hopeful blue patterns. We are an adaptable species, Commander, and having witnessed Earth's willingness to risk everything for our freedom, well, it has inspired us to be worthy of that sacrifice. Reed nodded thoughtfully. Humanity understands something that perhaps the Federation has forgotten. Peace is not merely the absence of conflict. Sometimes it must be fought for, protected with force when necessary. A philosophy born on a death world, Talon noted. Yet you use your strength to protect, not conquer. That is, not what we expected when we first learned of Earth. A Federation official approached, interrupting their conversation. The tall, insectoid being clicked its mandibles nervously. Commander Reed, the Council has issued a formal statement regarding Earth's intervention. Reed accepted the data tablet, scanning its contents. His expression remained neutral, but a slight tightening around his eyes betrayed his reaction. Sanctions? Talon asked, reading the human's subtle cues. Restricted access to certain Federation technologies for a period of 1 standard year, Reed confirmed, along with a formal censure for destabilizing established diplomatic protocols. The Federation official shifted uncomfortably. The Council wished me to convey that, while the outcome for Volani is considered positive, the precedent of unilateral military action cannot be endorsed. Reed handed the tablet back. Please inform the Council that Earth accepts their decision. We will continue to abide by Federation principles, including the principle that genocide must be prevented by any means necessary. After the official departed, Talon's skin briefly flashed amused yellow. You handled that diplomatically. Years of practice, Reed replied with a slight smile. The truth is, Earth expected something like this. The sanctions are symbolic, nothing that will significantly impact our development. And was it worth it? The lives lost? The political complications? Reed gazed out over the Volani capital, where citizens were rebuilding their world. Ask your people that question, Ambassador. I think you'll find the answer is clear. Colonel Brooks's fleet departed 3 days later, leaving the Prometheus to represent Earth's interests during the transition period. Reed used this time to study the Volani and their unique culture. Unlike many species that evolved on safer worlds, the Volani had developed extraordinary empathic abilities. They could literally feel the emotions of others around them. This had made the Korak occupation particularly traumatic, as they had experienced their oppressors' cruelty on both physical and emotional levels. Your species is remarkable, Reed told Talon during one of their many conversations. You've developed emotional intelligence to a degree that humans can hardly comprehend, while you developed physical capabilities and tactical thinking that we find equally incomprehensible. Talon replied, Perhaps that is why the galaxy needs both our kinds. The Federation's presence on Volani gradually increased as the situation stabilized. Reed found himself spending more time managing diplomatic relations than military operations, a transition he accepted with professional discipline, if not personal enthusiasm. 2 months after the liberation, Reed received orders from Earth Command. The Prometheus would depart Volani within the week, leaving behind a small advisory team to continue supporting the new government. On his final evening planetside, Reed attended a ceremony in the capital's central plaza. Thousands of Volani gathered to commemorate those lost during the occupation and to celebrate their newfound freedom. Ambassador Talon, now serving as interim leader of the Planetary Council, invited Reed to address the assembly. Standing before the gathered Volani, Reed felt the weight of the moment. These were people who had faced extinction, saved by an alliance they had never expected. People of Volani, he began, his voice carrying across the silent plaza. When your ambassador sent his message to Earth, he could not have known how we would respond. He took a chance, based on stories and rumors about a species from a harsh world who had somehow retained their capacity for compassion, despite evolving in an environment that rewarded strength above all else. The crowd listened intently, their skin shifting in patterns that reflected collective emotion. Currently, a deep, attentive purple. Humans have a saying, the true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members. When we received your call, we didn't calculate political advantage or resource gain. We simply asked ourselves, what is right? And the answer was clear. Reed gestured to the Earth Marines standing at attention nearby. These men and women volunteered to risk their lives for people they had never met, from a world they had never seen. They did so because on our death world, we learned long ago that survival depends not just on individual strength, but on our willingness to protect one another. He paused, looking out over the sea of Volani faces. As we prepare to depart, know this. Earth asks nothing from Volani. No territory, no resources, no political alliance. Our reward is seeing your civilization continue. Your art, your science, your unique perspective on the universe. These things make the galaxy richer for all species. That is payment enough. The Volani response was unlike anything Reed had experienced. As one, their skin shifted to a brilliant gold, a color he had never observed before. Ambassador Talon later explained it represented a profound emotional state that translated roughly as transcendent gratitude. The following morning, as Reed prepared to return to the Prometheus, Talon met him at the shuttle landing pad. The ambassador presented a small, crystalline orb, its surface etched with intricate patterns. "This contains our complete historical and cultural archives," Talon explained, "so that Earth may know who they saved." Reed accepted the gift with appropriate solemnity. "We will treasure it, Ambassador." "The Federation has much to learn from Earth," Talon said. "They believe peace comes from avoiding conflict at all costs. You understand that sometimes peace must be defended with strength. A lesson learned the hard way, over thousands of years of human history," Reed acknowledged. "Perhaps together, we can build something better than either of us could alone." As Reed's shuttle lifted off from Volani for the final time, he watched the landscape recede below, cities being rebuilt, fields returning to cultivation, a civilization continuing its journey among the stars. Whatever political complications might arise from Earth's intervention, this sight made them worthwhile. Aboard the Prometheus, Lieutenant Johnson welcomed him back to the bridge. "Course laid in for Earth. Commander, Federation observers have requested permission to inspect our weapon systems before departure." Reed raised an eyebrow. "Denied. Remind them that military vessels retain sovereign immunity under galactic conventions." "With pleasure, sir." Johnson hesitated. "There's something else. We're receiving reports from multiple sectors. The Karak Empire appears to be collapsing entirely. Systems they've controlled for decades are declaring independence." Intelligence Officer Stone elaborated. "It seems our victory created a domino effect. Without Kresh's fleet to maintain control, and with Emperor Vra reportedly assassinated by his own Security Council, their whole power structure is disintegrating." Reed considered this unexpected development. "Monitor the situation, but maintain our scheduled departure. This is an internal matter for those systems now." "Sir," Johnson asked, "do you think the Federation will acknowledge Earth's role in ending the Karak threat? They've been rather selective in their official statements." "Politics," Reed said with a slight shrug. "The important thing is that Volani survives, and the Karak can no longer threaten peaceful worlds. History will record what actually happened, regardless of diplomatic niceties." As the Prometheus prepared for hyperspace departure, Reed sent a final message to Ambassador Talon. It contained no political statements or grand pronouncements, just a simple promise that encapsulated humanity's approach to the wider galaxy. "We will come when you call." The Prometheus vanished into hyperspace, leaving Volani to rebuild under the watchful but ineffectual guidance of the Federation. The humans had appeared when needed most, bringing destruction to those who threatened innocence, then departing without claiming territory or tribute. Throughout the galactic community, the story spread of Deathworlders who had evolved in harsh conditions that bred strength and tactical genius, yet somehow retained compassion, of a species that would answer a desperate plea when established powers turned away, of warriors who fought with unmatched ferocity, yet sought no empire of their own. Some Federation species feared this new power and its willingness to act unilaterally. Others welcomed it as a necessary counterbalance to threats the Federation's consensus-based approach couldn't effectively address. But all recognized that humanity's emergence had fundamentally altered the galactic equation. In the halls of the Federation Council, debates raged about how to integrate these unpredictable Deathworlders into existing diplomatic frameworks. Meanwhile, In the rebuilt cities of Villani, citizens told their children stories of Earthships appearing from nowhere to challenge an overwhelming enemy, of humans who had no obligation to fight, yet chose to stand against impossible odds for the sake of strangers. And on a dozen worlds, formerly under Korak control, newly liberated peoples looked to the stars with a simple question: would the humans answer if they called too? The answer, though none yet knew it, was yes.